Hello, I am live from the floor at IMEX today with Michael Massari. Hi, Michael. How are you?
How are you? Thanks for taking the time to talk to me today.
It's so good to see you in
good
person.
To see you as well. That's right.
Yeah.
In living color.
This show is a lot bigger than even last year.
Yeah, sure. It's back to, I don't have the numbers yet, but I think it's back to 19 levels, and more than that, it feels just like it did pre-pandemic. So I think everything's not on its way to being back to normal, but in this regard, it's completely back to normal.
So tell me what's going on at Caesars.
It's a little bit boring, but we're just focusing all our effort on executing great meetings and events for our customers. We're back doing what we love. I joke that we have a lot of pesky customers that have complaints, a lot of pesky team members that have complaints, and we couldn't be any happier, right? But this is what we love to do. We want to be the best in the world at it. And so what's going on at Caesars is we're working every day to be better and better at executing great meetings and events for our customers.
That's great. So tell me, what's some of the things, anything new that's happening in terms of the venues here in Vegas and some of the events that you're hosting?
Look, I think you've been around. You see what's happening in Las Vegas, right? It's vibrant. We're helping customers execute great meetings and events and accomplish their goals. We have customers now, I think, that understand why they meet more than they ever did. Their desire to meet's higher than it ever has been, and so our meetings and events are plentiful. They're well attended. I think, as you can see when you walk around here, we're all setting records for attendance and numbers of meetings, etc. So it's really heartwarming and enjoyable, frankly.
So corporate events are back. That's a change from last year, right?
I think all events are back really for us in Las Vegas. I don't know what my contemporaries in other destinations around the U.S. would say. It was an all-time record for us in terms of number of meetings, in terms of revenue, in terms of attendance. And I think that's a trend that will continue through Q3, 4, and into next year. We're really excited about it.
That's great. So you were just telling me you're on the board of Meetings Mean Business.
I'm a founding member of the Meetings Mean Business Coalition way back to 2007, and I'm currently the co-chair, although I'm ending my term as co-chair. And so, yeah, I'm a little late for our conversation because we were finishing our board meeting.
Yeah. Tell us what the news is from Meetings Mean Business.
We continue to talk about and work on how we can make people understand what the meetings and events business means to our society. For me, it's two things. I think first, it's nothing good ever happened until someone first had a meeting. And that's a concept that I always challenge people to say, what in society do we have or are we working on that we have or need that we didn't have a meeting to talk about how to make it happen, to talk about how to grow it, how to accomplish it, how to execute against it. You have to have meetings and events to solve these problems. And sometimes my friends make fun of me, but it's medical conventions to talk about how to solve for cancer and for trauma care. It's technology conventions to talk about what the internet means and how we expand it and how we make sure that we manage it. It's governmental meetings on laws and how we solve problems at the border and Supreme Court, etc. I mean, nothing good ever happened until someone first had a meeting. And that's before all of the great benefits from employment, the taxi cab drivers, the front desk agents, the people at the airport, all the people that are employed and put food on their table because tourism happens and meetings and conventions happen. So those are the things we're talking about.
And where is Meetings Mean Business? What are some of the things that you're funding and what are you using your resources for? Just curious.
I think most of it are to convince our elected officials how important these things are. Like today we had Representative Dina Titus from the 1st District in Las Vegas here at our meeting. And she's been a big supporter and an understander of our industry for many years. We're blessed in Las Vegas and in Nevada to have great supporters in our elected officials. And she talked about Visit America and making sure that we have the support there. We're talking about making sure that we have an Assistant Secretary of Tourism, hopefully inside of Commerce or somewhere in the government. So the question becomes, how do you get more champions?
And then in terms of international, what's happening for you guys on the international front? Are you seeing some increases in international visitors and attendees?
We internationally really opened up last year. It's been a skyrocket. It's been really important to meetings and events and to the broader business. But there still is a challenge. The visa wait times are way too long. When you have visa wait times that are 350, 400 days, effectively the border is really closed because that's just not practical for somebody to say, I want to go to Las Vegas for an event or a trade show or for a travel visit a year and a half from now, 2 years from now. So they start the process now. And so that has to be something. Yeah. Representative Titus is working hard on that. U.S. Travel is working hard on that. Meetings Mean Business is working hard on that. But anything that your listeners can help us with there would be great for the industry.
And reaching out to their congressmen and senators would be the best way to do it.
That's the way to do it. Our industry is plagued in part because it's so disparate across all the different parts of our economy and our country. But that's also one of the advantages that we have, right? Because we touch all the local politicians. And so, yeah, that's what people can do, is make sure that their local politicians understand that 400-day wait times for visa just doesn't work for the travel industry. And the travel industry, as we started this conversation with, is essential, and it has to be fixed. Everybody understands it and is working on it, but we need the work to happen faster.
I've heard about maybe them doing some video interviews and things like that to help speed up the process. So
yeah, obviously I think technology has a part of this. Resources have a part of the solution there. I don't have a tactical set of solutions. That I would just say that lots of smart people should get together and say
figure
400 days doesn't work. It should be a
Yeah.
lot shorter. And I think a big part of it is a trusted traveler program, or people call it a visa waiver process, which is to say that we've got relationships with places that we can say, you don't need a visa any longer to travel to the U.S., and we don't need a visa any longer to travel to your country. Expanding that program where it's safe and sound, I think, is another thing that ought to occur more frequently.
yeah, that would really help a lot. And I was just reading something this morning about even like just Japan now lifting all of their restrictions. Now they're traveling again, and so I'm sure that will impact Vegas a lot and your venues.
This is true in Vegas, but I know it's also true in Philadelphia, and Chicago, and Anaheim, and Los Angeles. International travelers stay longer. They spend more on hotel rooms, on food and beverage, on their travel than domestic travelers. And that's not to say we don't want lots of domestic travelers, we want those too. But international travelers are very good travelers for all of our destinations. And we all need to be working hard to make sure that they're able to get here.
Yeah. I was just talking to a show organizer, and she was telling me it's a seller's market right now. So what are your thoughts on that, and any advice to people that are on the organizer side in terms of dealing with the good news of ramping up again? But then that also means could be higher rates and less dates that are available. So any advice there?
I do. You and I have talked a lot of times over the years, right? So I have a tendency to believe that less changes rather than more changes. And so that's my preamble to. At Caesars Entertainment, we've always believed very strongly in what we call the discovery process, or being interested, right? And you have to understand what people are trying to accomplish. You have to understand what their needs are. You have to understand what their budgets are. And you have to then craft a package that meets those needs, right? Both the financial ones and the non-financial ones. And you have to take the time to do that. And so what I would encourage people to do in my piece of advice is work with people who want to get to know you, who want to understand what you're trying to accomplish, who value the discovery process and are interested. Because once you have that, all the rest of this stuff can solve itself. I've never viewed this as a buyer's market or a seller's market. I've always viewed it as we have to work together to come up with something that makes sense for everybody. And I think as long as you work with people that want to do that, it's going to work itself out. That's not new for us. And it's been a big part of who we are for a long period of time. Flexibility and inquisitiveness are two of our big pillars.
So that's good advice.
Partners that want to do that, I guess, is my core piece of advice there.
Okay, I'll pass that along.
Yeah.
She was like, find out for me.
Yeah.
Give me some tips.
Yeah, because it's about, listen, we don't do a lot of transactions in the trade show industry. These are big transactions, and there are only a few. They've got to be done well, right? And how do you do them well if you don't spend the time to get to know each other?
Exactly. It's about the relationship with your customer and with their partners. You got to be partners in today's day.
If you're partners with somebody, we've got a customer at Caesars Palace that has been with us since 1960 annually.
Okay.
So every year that building's open. And you think about all the ups and downs since 1960, financial, political, societal, all the upheavals. And you have to be with somebody that's going to be there in the long run. It's not, I take advantage of you this year, you take advantage of me next year. That's not the way to run a relationship.
Yeah. Any other trends that you're seeing at your properties that an event organizer might be interested to know in terms of whether it's new features or even guest trends, like what people are doing?
Maybe. I just don't know if I'll surprise your listeners at all.
I bet you will.
I think you have health and wellness and safety is a mega trend that continues to be on people's mind. And how do you have the right timing of your show and the right number of breakouts and the right number of networking events, the right food and beverage offerings, the right level of safety and security, but still access. That's something that's constantly on people's minds. Obviously ESG and working with people that share your values and that think about the communities we operate in and the world we operate in the same way that you do. I think that's a mega trend that people are really thinking about constantly. As we've talked in the past, the trade show floor feels almost exactly like it did at the Grand Bazaar in Hungary 10,000 years ago, and a general session like it did in Athens, Greece during the beginning of democracy. But how do you incorporate technology and the changes that we see in the world to make the interaction process between the customers and the attendees and the presenters better and more bilateral rather than unilateral? I think that's a mega trend that people are constantly working on. I don't know if they'll surprise any of your listeners, but I guess for me it's always about, we started this at the beginning of our conversation, it's about becoming a little bit better tomorrow than you were today at the things that really matter. And we want to be the best in the world. And I think as long as you strive to be that and you get a little bit better tomorrow, then it's about blocking and tackling sometimes, not the shiny pennies.
Great. I really appreciate your time today.
It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, really great.
Thank you for your interest, and anything I can do to help you, it's be a pleasure.
Thank you.